Good morning, everyone. This is Don Bridges. I'm calling you from lovely Albuquerque, New Mexico. It's 22 degrees outside under a crystal blue sky, so that's Albuquerque's I call home. Just to reiterate a couple of the housekeeping notes that Don had, the presentation is being recorded, and I guess I've been corrected that don't use the chat function, use the question function. If you have a question, and I'm expecting that we'll talk about 45 minutes and give you about 15 minutes to answer your questions. If we don't answer your questions at the end of the presentation, we will answer your questions in a follow-up email. So just a little bit more about me. This is me at the back of the pack cycling, and that is Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been working in this XML business going back right at 20 years. Started in the XML world with a company called Enigma that, interesting enough, did electronic delivery of technical information. So I've worked in this area for quite some time, and I do work for JANA. JANA is a privately held company out of San Antonio, Texas. There are three main divisions. There's a technical writing division, an engineering division, and a consulting division. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about JANA. And following up with the kind of the CID and mantra is letting you know what will you learn in this presentation. And first of all, I want to look at it as what are your customers looking for in having a great customer experience when they access your information. And then what do you need to do to be able to fulfill things from your corporate side as far as how you deliver it. So I'm really going to be looking at both sides of that coin because I think it takes the totality of all that to deliver a great customer experience. This is a version of a slide that I suspect many of you have seen, and it's 20 years old at least. But basically, in the heart of most systems is a content management system or a component content management system, CCMS. There's lots of great choices out there. And then off to the left, you have the creation and revision of content. You have the translation of content if you're multilingual. Sometimes you have conversion of legacy content. So that's the left side of the screen. We really won't be talking about that, although I will mention sometimes the decisions that you make on the left side of the screen impact what happens on the right side of the screen. So saying, okay, I'm just going to go look at this little piece or that little piece without looking at it in its totality, I think that's a mistake. I think sometimes you will have gotchas and oops, I didn't know that was going to happen. But what we'll be looking at is the right side of the screen. And I kind of look at it as really there's two aspects of it. There is the delivery of information to content consumers. And then there's the feedback that they give you about your content. So we'll be focusing on the right side of the equation. So Dawn, maybe a good place to start is the question of how do you currently deliver technical information? So do we have a poll question opened up?
Yep, I have opened up the poll, and people are starting to vote.
Great. And as you can imagine, no wrong answer here, just trying to help me understand, okay, where are you at? And if everybody is saying, man, we deliver HTML5 and everybody's happy, then this is probably going to be a really short presentation. If everyone's delivering paper, this may be a little bit longer presentation. So vote for...
okay. Yep. It looks like the votes are slowing down, so I'm going to give it just a couple more seconds, and I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, and I will share the results. Okay, so I know that you're not necessarily being able to see this, Don. So we have 90% on PDF. That's your number one. Then you have 59% at HTML, 28% on paper, 17% on HTML5, and then we have 38% reporting some other kind of content.
Well, and I have to say that I'm a little impressed, a lot impressed maybe, that 59% is HTML. That's great, assuming that it is notating HTML. So, okay, that gives me a good start. So, how do we, and if you hear the clearing of the throat, as I mentioned to Dawn and Lisa right before we started, I've had this cold for like 3 weeks. So if I go on mute for a second, it's not that I'm ignoring you, it's that I'm trying to clear my throat without clearing it in your ear. So forgive me in advance. So how is great content defined? And basically, and I heard this at a conference a couple of weeks ago, that, you need to entertain your audience. And I guess my response to that is, if you want to go entertain your audience, you're probably in the wrong business. Pixar might be a better field for you. And maybe take that a little farther and saying, I want to thrill my audience. And then again, apparently by the poll results, most of you feel that posting PDFs, 90% of you are doing this, meets the obligations. But what really is, who really defines what is great content? And the answer is the customer decides what's right. And depending on who your customer is, PDF may be fine, sufficient, great. I tend to believe not, but we'll get into that in a second. But your customers, they're the ones that at the end of the day are saying, this is what's making us happy. This is what's delivering a great customer experience that we want to purchase your product again and again and again. So what are you trying to get out of this? And the answer, of course, is satisfied customers. And in a technical information paradigm, which I think most of us are at, we basically want to convey knowledge, help them understand the procedure, the value, or how to use, or how to repair, or how to maintain, or how to operate the product that you're selling, whether it be a hardware or a software product. Sometimes it's identifying a part number. And we've seen, of course, many applications that allow you to go purchase the part. And I will tell you, electronic parts catalog are a little bit of a different beast. I think I'll touch on them a little bit in this presentation, but I'm certainly not going to go delve into it. Most of the time, what we're talking about is those understanding of how do I go use the product, how do I go make sure it's the right product, how do I get exactly that little nugget, regardless of where I'm at, regardless of what device I have, how do I get that little nugget of information I need to go do my job? So there have been a lot of studies by Gartner and Forrester and others that say people really prefer self-service. And they don't want to talk to someone. They want to be able to go online, go find very quickly the information that they need to go do their job. They want it fast. We're in if those of you that are kind of old like me, you remember the dial-up systems where you got mail, and it may take 2 or 3 minutes, and now 2 or 3 minutes to go find the answer is just it's completely unacceptable. They want to know that the information is current and not, oh my gosh, I know that's wrong. I know that that procedure was changed 2 years ago, that it's unambiguous, and certainly a lot of that is in how you write the content. We're seeing more and more where people want to go assemble personal collections. We'll talk about that in a bit. And I think most of us have the perception that we want to be valued. We want to think that we're important. And a great way to go do that is customer feedback. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we get further on. Now, all that sounds great, but one of the things that we've seen over and over, and in the 20 years that I've been working in this industry, is you put a Herculean, tremendous amount of effort to go build this system, and then, oh my gosh, the content gets updated on a periodical or not so periodical basis, and I've got to go update it. And it's almost like doing the whole thing over again. And so oftentimes you'll see systems that are out of date the moment they're live and are really never in date, never current. And you really have to have an automated system that handles your delivery of demons that will go look for the latest approved information, push them to your delivery portal, and provide that always up to date. Certainly there is a corporate look and feel that most of us are under the umbrella of, where we need a color scheme, or we need logos or fonts or blah, blah, blah. So there's that. You don't want people accessing information that really have no business accessing information. And more we're seeing in a post-Google age that people want to understand what's being looked at and why. And what, are there parts of your technical information that are hanging people up, that, where they stop and they get frustrated at that step. You want to, so that's something that certainly, how is your information being consumed? If you're spending a lot of time on a specific set of topics that are never, and I do mean never, being accessed, then why are you spending a lot of time working on stuff that, for whatever reason, is not important to the content consumers? Certainly, you probably want feedback, and just a little anecdotal story about feedback is most people, or some people, are very scared of feedback. Well, what if they don't like it? And I go, well, wouldn't you rather know what they don't like versus being in the dark about what they like or don't like, so that you can go address it? But at the end of the day, you want satisfied customers as well. So maybe here's the hard part of this conversation, is that this requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of work to go get your content in a way that's usable, adding metadata, and we'll talk about metadata and taxonomy, and adding the metadata and adding the taxonomy so that people can go find the content that they're looking for quickly and easily. Learn from what Amazon has done. I've alluded to it, but I'll state it straight out, that simplified technical English is a tremendous asset to speak in one consistent voice. We think that while, yes, you can post PDFs, and yes, you can post Word documents, heck, you can go post anything you want. There is a lot of advantage to XML, and there's a tremendous value to data as an XML standard, because it allows for content reuse. It allows for short descriptions. It allows for smaller bits of information, nuggets of information to be delivered. And then also translation. If you want to go into international markets, you have to have the issue of saying, I want to, unless you're in aerospace, deliver information in the language that your customer is familiar with. So I cannot have a title, 13 objectives for a great customer experience, without providing you with the 13 objectives. So here they are. We will walk through them step at a time. And hopefully, at a high level, I'm going to try very hard not to go read the slides and give you credit that you can read the slides, but maybe offer some color commentary. And I've broken this up into 4 categories. And the first one is the biggest one, is accessing the content. And boy, that looks like really bad English for a portrait engineer. That probably is really bad English. And as tech writers, you could probably, I'll tell you what we do. Suggestions for this slide. If someone can give me a suggestion for this slide, I will send you a jar, mail it to your house or your business, a jar of New Mexico salsa, since I'm calling in from Albuquerque, New Mexico. So if someone would come up with a great selection, a great idea for how can I go make this more readable, you will win a jar of New Mexico hot, mild, or not so hot salsa. Really tasty. So how to make things easier for content consumers to go find the information. And one of those is responsive design. And maybe you've seen the phrase content is like water. Maybe you've heard of it, but we see a growing shift from a desktop paradigm to a mobile paradigm. And people want to go access information on their mobile devices. We see it's very much becoming a bring-your-own-device world, although a lot of companies, particularly in these service arenas, are saying, okay, here's a tablet to go use to go access information. But people more and more want delivery of mobile information. And quite a few of you are delivering to HTML. That's great. A few of you are delivering HTML5. That's using Louisiana as a MOBETA, that's great. That's really where you want to be. Is HTML5 because it will do that dynamic. Oh, you're on a tablet. Let me optimize it for that. Oh, you're on a Samsung or an iPhone. I'm going to optimize it for that. So we understand that you still may have to deliver paper or PDF as a legal obligation with delivery of the equipment, potentially with delivery of the software. But having said that, beyond the initial delivery, what we hear from customers is, and they want to, from data consumers, they expect to be able to access content on their mobile devices. And in a little bit like my AOL reference from a few minutes ago, we want the answer now, not 5 minutes from now. And there's a lot of things, and I'm using a term that some of you may have heard called a web CMS, and what is, and I think of that as the database that holds not necessarily the CMS for your writing and revising of content, but typically you say, okay, once it's approved, you will migrate things to a database for delivery. So what is your database for delivery? What are the formats? There are, I'll call them lean formats. XML is one, and maybe fatter formats and some graphics formats count as, I think they're heavier, slower to load. So you want high performance of your system that scales to the amount of volume, the amount of data that you have, and that it works well. And I guess in the cynical side of me, I'll say, it's always a really good idea to go see live implementations when you're looking at vendor A versus vendor B, so that you can kind of see, is it smoke and mirrors, or is it no kidding real, delivering truckloads of content? And there are some of the delivery portals, delivery software that delivers incredible amounts of volume to multiple users at the same time around the globe. So here's a little bit, I had talked earlier about metadata and taxonomy. And, if you're saying, well, what's that? And maybe a good example of that is most of us are familiar with Amazon. And Amazon allows you to go refine your search very quickly. I was looking for something, maybe a solar panel. And so if I want to go limited, saying, okay, I can go do that. How do they do that? They do it with metadata. They do it with taxonomy, which says, okay, I know you were looking for weatherproof, but I'm also going to collect outdoor. Or I know you were looking for outdoor, maybe that's the equivalent of weatherproof. So you can assign multiple meanings to information. Amazon does this 24/7. It works. They sell truckloads of stuff. Just kind of as a side note, you'll see a couple of these tips as we go through. If you want to learn more about metadata and taxonomy and in some customer forums that we've done, one of the questions is, how do I go do reuse, which is the internal side of this, and metadata is a great way to go help you do reuse and do for what it's worth category, but it's also, metadata is a great way to help you go deliver your technical information. One of the maybe bigger challenges these days is, how do I go deliver offline content where I'm not connected to the internet? And what we are seeing more and more is that the software used for delivery uses apps. I'm certainly not going to say that's the only way to go do it, but it certainly seems like it's the preferred way to go do it these days. And an app is not the same as a website, but it's certainly connected at the hip to your website, and certainly connected at the hip to how your data is accessed and stored, and an app is the way. So if your content needs to be consumed in remote places that don't have internet access, typically apps are a good way. And I'll tell you up front, this is one of the things that's kind of on the leading edge or bleeding edge, or right on the frontier of being solved for a lot of content delivery software packages. But if it's important to you, it's really important to you. And if it's not important to you, forget about it. Another issue that we see really gaining some traction is custom collections, and these can be done at depending on the software that you use at multiple levels. But for instance, I'm a car guy, so if I said, I'm looking, and I'll give you the illustration, the analogy of Ford. We're not a Ford supplier, but I'm a Ford guy, and if my focus was transmissions, what I might do is assemble collections that says, I'm going to only deal with, since transmissions are my world, I'm going to go pull in transmissions. Only pull in the data that's relevant to the transmissions, whether it's a car or a truck or an SUV or a midsize, whatever. I'm going to go assemble the transmission information. Or maybe it's the electronics that have to deal with the transmission. If I'm focused on that little area, so that I don't have this huge collection to go through. I've got my own little collection that's relevant and germane to the job that I have to do. So this is something that I think most of the, and oh, by the way, I'll finish my previous thought. This is most of the software companies that have what I'll call high-end electronic delivery will support custom collections, and it may also give you an idea of a lot of people, and this gets back to analytics, but if a lot of people are building the same or very similar content collections, it may give you an idea, maybe we need to offer that as a book. And oh, by the way, you've probably figured out with Word or with some of the other legacy formats, this is difficult to do with data and XML. Whether it comes from Frame XML or whether it comes from another XML editor, this allows you to go assemble those content collections that are relevant to what you do. So I mentioned earlier that one of the issues with PDF is that it can be obsolete almost immediately. I mean, the day that you publish, the clock starts ticking, and then when you go as time goes on and you change it, you have to remember, oh my gosh, I've got to go change the information that's out on my website. And your customer, you say, well, why do we, and of course no one's going to say, why do we have to provide up-to-date content? But I will tell you that there is something to be said for building customer belief and faith in your product line, that they know that the information that they're dealing with is always the current version. So I will mention that, PDF is problematic. Being able to go output PDF for most systems is not a hard trick. But I will say one of the ways that I've seen organizations solve the problem is they add a printed field, or if they know, okay, we're on a quarterly revision schedule or annual revision schedule, I can say, okay, if today is January the 25th, and I know we're going to come out with a new revision on March 31st, then I can say it's invalid after March 31st, so that no ifs, ands, or buts. Whoever is looking at that PDF knows, okay, it's the data's probably been changed. So multilingual, it is appropriate if you are selling internationally, unless you're in the aerospace industry, which is a English-only paradigm. But multilingual is, as you probably know, a strong factor for the value of data, and it's a strong factor for having customers that feel valued, that they have a great experience when it's in their language. I'm sure most of us have stumbled across a website that's not in a language that we understand. It's beyond frustrating. And there's really two aspects here. One is the content needs to be in the customer's language, and the other is the user interface, or GUI, that says, okay, here's the command lines, and here's how they navigate through the content. That also has to be in their language. You need to make sure, if you're delivering easy for me to say, multilingual information, that the search works in compound languages such as German or Japanese. And Japanese, I'll tell you, is even trickier due to multiple alphabets and transliteration. So you need to make sure that your long-term goals are met by whatever solution you have and that you've accounted for. Does software handle it, and does my content handle it? And finally, in the making it easier for the content consumer, most of us, the reason that we read the news is to find out what's new. And many of the more successful pages will have the what's new section so that if I log in, I can go see, I may not have been looking for this little bit of information, but I'm told, this has changed. And it may not have been my purpose going in, but when I see it, I say, yeah, I'm interested in that. And so you can read that and then come back to go address the problem that you have, or at least make yourself a note that says, yeah, I need to go back and look at that. So the second category is making content delivery easy for, and I call it the Tech Pubs group. I realize it's that group of people that create and manage and deliver information is not always tech pubs, but humor me, if you will. In the how to go update or how to go make it easier for your data consumers, providing an automated approach for delivery is really critical. The way that we've seen it work most often is the delivery portal is integrated in the CMS or CCMS, and once the work state gets changed to approved, there are daemons that will automatically go say, this has changed. It automatically gets sent, automatically gets published, without really anyone even really having to go monitor that process. And now certainly you may want to go do audits to make sure nothing's going sideways or screwy, but yeah, that's certainly the bigger your website, this will be more and more and more an issue. If you've only got one product with one PDF that's 5 pages, not a big deal. But I suspect most of you have more than one product and have more than 5 pages of technical information, or you wouldn't be here. In DITA, it's a little bit more powerful because DITA is set up for that automation that says when you update a topic, all the places where that topic are used are updated. So, yet again, another place that once that work state changed to approved and I'm going to use the term document that goes along with those topics is approved, then it automatically gets pushed to the publishing engine. The next group is what I'll call security personas and content analytics. I've talked about this a little bit, but basically where we've seen the most successful, the happiest customers, the best feedback is when they see information that is appropriate for them. And we see a lot of companies that in a PDF paradigm will have one version of the PDF for them, one version of the PDF for maybe their suppliers or their resellers, and then another one for the public. And which is great, except it's in a PDF paradigm, typically a very manual process. But with personas, you can identify who has access to what content based on how they sign on, and there's a lot of different protocols for how content can be accessed, whether it's LDAP or others. But you basically are invariably will want to say, certain people can go see certain information and they can't see other information. And this allows you to have one portal, but depending on how you sign on drives who gets to see what. And that not only helps you from a security perspective, but it also helps the content consumers because they're not seeing information that they should be seeing that's not relevant for them, whether it's more detail to a procedure, whether it's company proprietary information. You can basically set up portals that allow the right information to be seen. And the other part is usage analytics. And we see this really as a growing field that says, I need to understand who is accessing my content. I can tell you that back in a previous life, I worked for a company called Data Conversion Laboratory. And the number one page on the website was, how do I convert from Quark? Not that I have anything against Quark, and I kind of thought, that's an interesting, but month after month after month, and so, obviously that was the most polished piece of information that we have. That's where we focused on. Conversely, content that was never seen, we kind of said, why are people not actually, is this not important? I'm certainly not going to go spend a tremendous amount of time working on that content. Looking at the duration of how long someone was on a page, maybe this is a great place to go put a video, because the prose, the words, are not are not conveying the information quickly. So, do I have content dead in pages? And is that, the nugget of information that they were looking for? If so, how do I go make that easier for them to go find? So when you combine usage analytics which is certainly the numerical side thing, with feedback, I think you get a tremendous insight into, and we'll talk about feedback in a second, but you get tremendous insight into how is your content actually being consumed. Because in a PDF world, in an HTML world, you're posting it, you're presenting it, and you're saying, go for it, be prosperous, and you really don't know if it's going forth and being prosperous or how it's going forth and being prosperous. So both of those, I think the analytics are really important. I think the feedback is really important. So on that subject of collecting feedback, as I mentioned up front, I think it's very important to collect feedback. I think it's very important for your customers to think that, you're paying attention, you care what I think. And I've seen this done a lot of different ways, as simple as, was this information helpful? You can click a yes or no. We've seen, if you're playing the social media world, I guess it's on Facebook, you can give it the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Even a step beyond that is saying, I want to go make a comment about this. And you can set up those comments in multiple ways, but typically the most prevalent way of getting feedback where you're allowing commenting is people can select a data paradigm topic and comment and say, hey, this was great, or, well, this was right, but you got this, maybe it's a little wrong, or maybe it's completely goofy. Going back even further in my career to my Pratt & Whitney days, and when I was at Enigma, we got feedback that someone had said, and Pratt & Whitney makes jet engines, and there was feedback in the Enigma system, and this goes back almost 20 years ago, that people said, use a broom handle to go rotate the engine. And which you would sometimes rotate the blades of the engine so that you could inspect them. And our product engineers saw this and just went crazy and saying, no. Broom handles will nick a fan blade. You don't want to use a broom handle. You want to rotate it manually by hand or mechanically off something called the auxiliary power unit, or APU. I'm getting way too technical. But at the end of the day, what they learned was there was people in the field doing something horribly wrong that could damage the engine. Feedback gave them that insight, and they were able to address it and saying, let's go put together a campaign and say, here's what, if this one person's doing it, I'm sure other people are doing it. And so there was a campaign that addressed, you don't want to use a broom handle to go rotate the fan blades on a jet engine to go spin them around. And Pratt & Whitney actually sent the guy that submitted it a $50 gift card as a thank you. Not that he was doing something wrong, but that he alerted them to something that could potentially cause hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars in damage. Kind of related to feedback is the issue of forms. And this also is, and I'm not quite sure, I understand why, but I see forms that are being filled out in the field a great way to go collect information to help you in corporate understand what somebody did, how they did it. Did they get measurements of something? Did they check a voltage? Did they what was the fault flag that you saw, blah, blah, blah. So form support, and I've seen very simple forms, and I've seen very complex forms, but form support is a great way to go collect feedback, but really more of the data as far as how is your product being used. As I mentioned here, you can assimilate that data and get trends that have to do with performance, or if you say, with forms, I can show you electronically the repair history of this product, and so that if it fails, you can say, yep, we did or we didn't, or it was or wasn't followed the maintenance interval that the OEM or the service provider had documented, and at least were we in compliance. So a little bit of where do we go from here? And I guess, I've broken this down into, are these things real today? And the answer is, yeah, they are real today. Not so much in technical information, but they're real. They're coming. And this is kind of where I think the world is going. One is predictive delivery. It says, based on what you've searched for in the past, based on what you've told me, based on your situation, I can predict and suggest things that may be what you're looking for. I was looking for bicycle parts once upon a time, and those clever people at Amazon on my right pane of my Yahoo Mail was bicycle parts. And over, bicycle parts. And it's like, oh, wait, I know how they do this. They looked at my cookies and saw, I was looking at bicycle parts. So that predictive delivery, I think that's a place that we'll see more and more saying, I know what you've looked for in the past. I know what other people like you have looked for. These things might be of interest to you. Another place that certainly is, I think, growing a lot is this thing called the Internet of Things, or IoT, that basically says, I have a Maytag refrigerator. I know you have a Maytag refrigerator. It just threw a fault code, and it communicated with us that it threw a fault code. And I'm going to go ahead and I know the model you have. I know the location you have. I know the parts list. I can, kind of predict and say, Don, this is the information that you might likely be interested in. So I think the IoT world is coming. Are we there yet, broad scale? No, I think little pockets, yeah, maybe. And then this thing called virtual agents. I link to a YouTube if your employer will let you view on YouTube at work, but you can go meet Nina, who's one of these virtual agents. I think State Farm Insurance, maybe it's Allstate Insurance. Yeah, it is Allstate. Has a virtual agent that you can use. And oh, by the way, Allstate is using data. And basically will guide you through the process and will kind of predict what you want and ask you questions to help you in a very human way find the information that you're looking for sooner rather than later. So, Don, maybe I can have you run poll question number 2. And I've kind of broken it down into the 4 major areas that I saw and said, because voting for 13 would probably be frustrating, but maybe you can have people tell us what's important to you.
Yep, I've got the poll up for you.
I hear bells spinning in the background.
They're having to think a little harder about this one.
Well, it is tougher. And again, no wrong answer. And you may say, well, some parts of this and some parts of that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, looks like we're almost settled down. Yep. Okay, looks like everybody that wants to vote has voted, so I will close this and show the results. Okay, Don, you've got 61% saying that making accessing content easy for the consumer 21% getting consumer feedback or forms, and then 11% for security profiles and content analytics, and a small 7% for making content delivery easy for tech pubs.
Interesting. And so I guess there's a side of me that it's gratifying that most of you are saying, hey, making it easier for the consumer, that's what's really important to me. And it is. If you're not making it easier for the customer, then it will end poorly. So maybe before we get to questions and answers and questions, and we'll work on the answers, kind of the overlying premise is, please let your requirements drive the solution. Don't let the solution drive the requirements. I showed that pitch of the ecosystem, and you really need to have a good idea. How does what I do on the content creation side affect what I do on the content delivery side? And quite frankly, in a PDF world, it really doesn't. In an HTML world, and really in an HTML5 world, it really does. And hopefully I conveyed that. You need to understand what capabilities are important to you, and if it's not important to you, and it's not going to be important to you, don't bother with it. It's not germane. I will tell you, and this may sound like, boy, this is harsh and this is cruel, but never, ever, ever, ever take a salesperson's word for it. They will tell you anything to get you to buy, for the most part. But evaluate it, test it again. Make sure it's no kidding meeting your requirements. And I think most of you know this, but just as a point of reiteration, that having it work in your environment goes a long way towards saying, will I be happy with it? And then, if you need to decide, am I going to have an expert opinion as far as what is the right ecosystem for me, what is the right roadmap for me, what is the right software for me, how do I go do that? If that's in your core competency and your information architects and your managers can go filter that out, fantastic. And certainly their input is critical. But sometimes it does pay to hire a Sherpa to help you. That's climbed the mountain 1,000 times before, and can say, or 100 times or 10 times, and can guide you up and help you avoid mistakes that could be very expensive. So I had asked earlier for help with a slide. There is my email address, and no kidding, I will select the best one that you have. I would sincerely like your feedback. I don't have a clever way to, a thumbs up or thumbs down, but let me know, did you like the presentation? If you did, why? If you didn't like the presentation, let me know that. I do speak from time to time. There's 37 of you out there, and would hate to waste your time. So with that plea for, let me know what you thought about the presentation. Let me know how to go rephrase the thing that just really challenged me. And Dawn, I will turn it over to you if there's any questions.
Okay, thanks, Don. Right now, not any questions in there, but we'll give some people a chance to do it. I did get a couple of comments. I think we did you a disservice, Don, in that I think the last full question that we set up, we actually only allowed one answer instead of multiple ones. And so there was at least one person who said, all of them were important. So I think you had originally intended for us to give them that, the option to select more than one, and I think we didn't set that up right. So apologies to you and to everyone.
No worries. Yeah, so if there's no questions, either I did a fantastic job or a horrible job. I will, mention to you if you're mulling a question right now, and even if you're not, at the CMS DITA conference that Dawn and the fine folks from CIDM will be sponsoring in April, and Dawn, you probably have that date memorized. I don't.
Yeah, I don't know. April 24th, something like that. I'll look it up.
That's awesome. So the reason that I mentioned that conference is it's a great place to not only talk with different vendors that for sure will be there and showing you and I'm more than happy to send you a list of here's options for you. But talk with their customers. And it looks like Lisa, April 24th to 26th.
Yep.
San Diego, I realize that's a hardship going to San Diego for many people, but you will, I suspect, get over it. But it's a great place to not only talk with vendors, but talk with other attendees at the conference and say, what do you use to deliver information, and how's that working for you? And I will tell you, there's some people that are way out in front of the curve and do a fantastic job, and I'm more than happy to share those people with you. Shoot me an email, and I will tell you that the question comes up: what's the best software for fill in the blank? And the answer is it's an impossible question to answer. If I said, what's the best car? And some of you may say a truck, and some of you may say an SUV, and some of you may say a sports car. And so it really depends on what your requirements are.
Okay, Don, we've got a few questions coming in now. One, since it's just a question, if you would go back to that slide, I'll have you do that, and then we'll have some questions while that slide is up. Someone just asked if you could put up the slide that listed all 13 of the things that you had. So everybody can stare at that while we answer some of the other questions.
Is this the slide? I hope.
Yep, that's it. Yep. Okay, so you touched on content reuse. Do you have recommendations on how to push the benefits of content reuse?
Well, content reuse is really, I think, going, to your end user. I hate to say it's going to be, for the most part, invisible. For the most part, it's going to be invisible. Where content reuse shows up on this chart is, one, always current, because you may have a topic that's used in 5 places, and if you forget to go in a non-data paradigm, if you forget not to go update that concept in every place that topic is, and in data, it's doggone impossible, doggone difficult. But in a legacy kind of world, it's really easy to say, oh man, I forgot to go update it here. So that's where it manifests itself on, and this side, as you can probably figure out, is the customer side. But in the easy to update the delivery, content reuse plays a big role, because that updating of information is done automatically once the topic work state is approved for release. Invariably, if you set up an automated system, it will automatically go push to your web delivery portal. And so those are maybe the 2 areas. And as I'm thinking about, certainly usage analytics, that topic, and, where exactly was that specific piece of information? Were they looking at it in the, I'm going to make these model numbers up, in the model 100, or the model 200, or the model 300, or the model 400? Where was that topic being accessed? And those usage analytics will allow you that. But those are really the 3 places that reuse shows its head. And then maybe on a side note, topics show themselves up is some of the portals will allow you to go deliver at a topic level. And you're delivering smaller chunks of information. I know one of the problems with longer PDFs is, oh my gosh, you just dropped this 300-page book on me. And when you're using reuse, typically you're dropping a topic on people. And yeah, then you go to the next topic. Hopefully that answered that question.
I think so. Another question, why don't you put up the slide that you want help with? So all the
yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah. So here's the slide that I want help with, and no kidding, we will send you a jar. I'll tell you what, 36 jars of salsa, gosh, I might get creamed. If 36 of y'all send me comments, then I don't know how I'll do it this way. But if it's just a handful, fine. Help the tortured engineer, and as I've said before, we are tortured by the English language. You've probably dealt with engineers enough to know engineers are tortured by the English language. How would I rewrite this? And I didn't think of this until this morning, but every time I ran across the slide, it's like, Don, really? Seriously? That's the best you can do? That's the best I can do. So,
Okay, Don, you mentioned controlled access. Were you referring to doing this through the CCMS or by some other means?
Yeah, typically it is done as part of the, there is a part of it that's done in CCMS, there's a part of it that's done in the authoring side, and by that, the way that we've seen people handle that is saying this topic is for, we'll call it employees, and there's a metadata tag, I'm not going to call it effectivity, but audience equals employees. And this, and you may have a sister topic that says audience equals employees, customers, public. So it really, the genesis starts in the authoring side, but you also have to have a delivery software delivery portal that can go leverage that and go say, I have Don that logged in, and Don's just part of, he's Joe Consumer. He's not an employee. He's not a customer. And so I might show Don less, or I might show Don more. I don't, depending on how typically I have to see less. So it certainly is in the CCMS side. It certainly is in the authoring side, and it's certainly in the delivery side. So it really touches all three. But you've got to go account for it. You've got to go do that homework up front. What are the usage personas? Do I want one level of employee to go see information that maybe I don't want other levels of employees to go see? And those are the kind of data strategies that you have to think out up front, because doing them as an afterthought is really tough.
Okay. Question about when you were talking about telling the user what is new. Do you have any good practices on how to share what's new to the user and in what format that should take?
Typically, that is triggered off of the date that it is released, and maybe the better systems that I've seen, or the more elegant way that I've seen this done, is a style sheet that will go through the web CMS or the database that you're using knows and say, okay, these are the 10 most recently updated topics. And my style sheet can say, I can go present 10, 5, 3, whatever the number is, and provide a short description of saying, under the what's new category, I'm going to tell you these 5 topics or these 10 topics. That's probably the most elegant, automated way to go do it. And have your style sheet, which it will do, and keyed off of the database that knows, okay, here's the dates for every topic that I have, or for every chunk of content that I have. Here's the release date, and I'm going to pick the 5 most recent ones.
Okay. There's a question here about if you have any recommendations on good tools for collecting customer feedback and data analysis, even things like tracking, eye pattern tracking and things like that. How do you get that type of information?
I'm more than happy to, and if you'll send me an email and I'll post this up again, what is the best? I can just tell you, here's what people are using. What is the best really depends on your situation. I will tell you that most of the delivery platforms have their own analytics built in. And so, yes, through APIs, you can go use someone else's. But yeah, I'm more than happy to, hey, here's ones that you might want to go check out.